It's Friday, the 19th of March, and welcome to the Breakfast Show. This is actually our 20th consecutive show, and I'm delighted that it's brought to you today in conjunction with Miller Groundbreaking, who very kindly sent me a new t-shirt to wear on the show, as you can see there. Mind you, this is a bit like when your friends go on a tropical holiday without you and bring you back a t-shirt, as my mate and co-host actually got to visit Miller last week. I am just kidding. My dad's not too well at the moment, as I've mentioned before, so I'm still doing my level best to shield wherever I can. So I was more than happy for Peter to visit Newcastle. And let's face it, the t-shirt is canny-like. You can probably tell I've never said that before in my life. Unfortunately, today's show is going to be a pretty sad and somber one, but I've pushed that part towards the end of the show, partly so it doesn't bring you all down on what looks set to be a very nice sunny day, but also because I'm not entirely sure quite what's going to come out at the end of the show. So if you're that way inclined, stick around. If you're not, then bail out early, because, as I say, it's going to get pretty somber, I think. Before we get to all that, let's see who, besides Cawarden Demolition, and more of that in a second, is celebrating today. It's actually a big happy birthday to actor Bruce Willis, to actress Glenn Close, to producer and pariah Harvey Weinstein, and to lawman and all-round badass Wyatt Earp. So happy birthday to all of those except Harvey Weinstein, who can go do one, basically. We'll be right back after this.
If you enjoyed this show, please consider supporting us. Go to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, I've written articles about it, shouted it from the rooftops, and generally laboured the point that we need to get more women in the industry. So very pleased to see that the good folks over at Balfour Beatty are taking the matter every bit as seriously as we are. The company's just published its 2020 gender pay report, which is apparently a statutory requirement these days for companies with over 250 employees. I didn't realise that, but that's good to see. The report analyses the difference between the average pay of male and female employees across all roles and the percentage of male and female employees across Balfour Beatty's very, very broad business right here in the UK. As a direct result of the positive steps taken to increase the proportion of female hires across the business, the company has recently appointed its second female executive committee member. And it's also seen a significant rise in the number of female graduate and apprentice recruits, with the figure now standing at 27%, which is up from 22% in 2019. Now, given that women make up around about 11% of the wider construction industry, I think that's a notable achievement. So that's definitely to Balfour Beatty's credit. So hats off to them for that. There is a lot in this world that I don't understand. Racism, homophobia, why anyone would choose to be a Chelsea supporter. But there's one that I find exceptionally hard to fathom. And it's the resistance of some equipment operators to the very notion of operator aids and driver aids. In truth, I think the vast majority of right-minded operators roundly welcome anything that will make their working life just a little bit easier. But there are some that perceive any kind of driver assist system as an admittance of weakness or incompetence. So we, or more specifically I, decided to put that to the test. After all, we've got 137,000 plus followers over on Instagram, and if you can't call on their expertise from time to time, what is the point? So we ran a 24-hour poll that ended at 5:30 yesterday, actually. And we wanted to see if our followers, the 137,000 plus, were willing, ready, and able to embrace driver aids. Just under 8,000 people responded, which is remarkable in itself. And the result, I'm glad to say, was an overwhelming victory for good sense and for driver aids, with 71% of all respondents saying they favoured systems that make their life easier or more productive, or perhaps more importantly still, safer. That will be good news for a number of people, a number of companies, not least Volvo Construction Equipment, which has just upgraded, let me try that again, it's just upgraded its Dig Assist suite of tools. According to the manufacturer, Dig Assist unlocks the excavator's full potential. Using the in-cab Volvo Copilot tablet, operators can quickly and independently manage all digging operations with ease, whether the task at hand is levelling sites, digging trenches, grading slopes, or creating site profiles. I've got to be honest, I'm not even sure why this is even a discussion point anymore. You wouldn't go to buy a car and insist that the power steering, ABS braking, sat-nav and electric windows were removed because you're an experienced driver. Quite why some operators cling on to the notion that unaided machines mark them as elite operators. I just find that baffling, but hey, each to their own, horses for courses, as we always say. Now, this time next week, assuming that the Earth isn't hit by an asteroid or the planet falls to a zombie apocalypse, the National Federation of Demolition Contractors will have a new president in the shape of William Crooks. While the battle for the position of second vice president is proving predictably divisive, William Crooks appears to be widely respected and universally liked. And he certainly is here in Demolition News Towers. His presidency really is fitting. It's a fitting reward for a man that's given past 15 odd years to the support of the Federation. And he won't have to wait to celebrate. We learned yesterday that thanks to market intelligence provider, the Builders Conference, William Crooks' company, Cawarden Demolition, has just been awarded the contract to clear the way for 259 new apartments as part of the ongoing Beckett-Well regeneration project in Cawarden's native Derby. Now, sticking with the subject of William Crooks, I'm delighted to announce that at 6 p.m. on Monday, we will premiere an exclusive video interview with the incoming NFDC president. We filmed it just over a week ago, and I got to see the final edit last night. And if I say so myself, it's very, very good. Well, William's bit is, I just sort of fill in the gaps, but William's bit's very good. Also very insightful, which bodes well, I think, for his presidency, which, as I say, starts on Friday next week. We will unveil that film across YouTube, Facebook and Instagram TV simultaneously at 6 p.m. on Monday, and it will also appear on demolitionnews.com at the same time. So be sure to tune in. Okay, so that's the fun part over and done with. I said at the top of the show we were going to get a bit sad and a bit somber, and this one is doubly hard, and I'll tell you why. The subject matter itself is one that it's not easy to speak about, and in this instance, where we stand today is it's unconfirmed. I had one, then two, then 8 or 9 phone calls to let me know that a demolition man, a well-known demolition man, had taken his own life. I can't get hold of the family. I don't want to get hold of the family, is the truth, but I can't get hold of any of his former colleagues or anything else to get it confirmed. But I've had it from a lot of sources, 99% of which I would rely upon normally. And I've also seen, I interviewed the man in question not so long ago, and his name and his company name has been searched one hell of a lot in the last 24 hours on demolitionnews.com. So I do think the rumours, the unconfirmed rumours are likely to be true. I'm not going to dwell on that one individual, purely because, as I say, it's unconfirmed, and until it's confirmed, I'm not going to name the man in question, out of respect for him and for his family. So I'm just going to talk around the subject itself. It's interesting that the news came on. If you were here yesterday, you'll know that I mentioned a BBC documentary called Our Silent Emergency, hosted by Roman Kemp. I watched it on BBC iPlayer, and it was talking about male suicide, and I only mentioned it on the show yesterday, and then literally within a few hours I heard of the passing of a well-known demolition man. What I find surprising, and I say surprising, and I'm every bit as guilty as everyone else, the combined construction and demolition industry here in the UK reports somewhere between 35 and 45 site deaths each year. And when those figures are published by the Health and Safety Executive, we all get extremely agitated and excited, and we stamp our feet, and we shout and swear and call for change and everything else. At the same time that's going on, the same sector is seeing men, and it is mainly men, dying at a rate of more than one per day. So more than 365 men will take their own lives in the construction industry in a given year. And yet we get awfully animated about the fact that 35 people have died on site. Now, my guess is those suicides generally happen away from site, so it's not specifically a construction problem or a demolition problem, but these people work within demolition and within construction. So it absolutely is. And quite why we're not getting more excited and animated and taxed about it, I really don't understand. I'll probably come back to that because, as you can probably tell right now, I'm completely off script and I'm making this up as I go along. I've seen suicide up close, both physically and mentally, twice. The first time, where I lived as a child, there was a field fairly close to where I lived, where me and my friends would go and play football. And I guess I was about 11 or 12 years old. And one of our mates came over and said, "Would you like to see a dead body?" Well, being 11 or 12 at the time, the answer obviously was, yeah, of course I want to see that. And it turned out that a guy had basically laid down on the railway lines close to where we were playing and waited for a train to come along. It was a suicide. It was proven to be a suicide. I went back. I saw the aftermath. Bizarre the things you remember. I remember the fact that he was wearing like a tan-coloured corduroy jacket that had like a big V of blood where the train had hit him. And then I went back to playing football, which I guess is what you can do if you're 11 or 12 and you're invincible and stuff just, it's like water off a duck's back. That left I'm not going to dwell on it. It left no lasting mental scars or anything like that. And then 15 years ago, almost to the day, my former business partner also took his own life. He was an odd character. We worked together for probably for 4 or 5 years on a magazine. Then he went freelance, and then he invited me to join him as a freelance as well, which I did. We worked in the same office for a while, and then we worked in separate offices. And to give you an idea of what he was like, I would visit his office sometimes, walk through the door and be met by, a slap across the back and how you doing, and here's a cup of coffee, and did you see the football last night? And then on other occasions, I would walk through the door, say good morning to him, and barely get a grunt in response. He was a guy whose mood did swing from high to low on a fairly regular basis. And it was only after he had taken his own life that I think I realised, and some of his family realised, and some of his other work colleagues realised that his final low had probably gone on for longer than previous lows. And that was the outcome. The guy in question had 6 children, happily married, and just got himself. I remember saying to his brother at the funeral that there must have been a temporary or momentary mental health, not a mental health issue, because my father has suffered from depression my entire life, and I'll come back to my own bits and pieces in a second. But while my former colleagues' moods were up and down, and yeah, I guess he was. He probably was a depressive. I think to make the decision to end it all, to take your own life, requires you to go even further than just plain old depression, as if depression could be a plain old thing. So yeah, almost to the day, 15 years ago, and then here we are again. Why am I sharing this? Not sure, really. I think one of the things we've all said it. We've said it here. I've said it on the podcast. I've said it in print. It was said again on Roman Kemp's TV documentary earlier in the week. This need to talk, and you might notice. I may live to regret this, but I'm actually scrolling my telephone number across the bottom of the screen there. Really is an open invitation. If you're watching and if you're struggling, give me a call. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not an expert. In fact, I'm not an expert at anything, really. But if you want somebody not associated to talk to, give me a call. As I said, I'm shielding at the moment, and will be for a little bit longer. Yeah, I would guess. Phone's always on, pretty much 24/7. As anybody will tell you, it's always on. It's always in my pocket. It's actually sat here right by my side as we speak, and it's even switched on today, which is not usual for a broadcast. And I think part of the reason I'm sharing that, I've made no secret of the fact that I've had a couple of periods in probably about the last 10 years where I've had fairly prolonged periods swallowing happy pills like they're going out of fashion. And I think one of the things I found it hard, and I also found it hard to explain, is the fact that I'm happily married. I'm with the woman that I met when she was 16 and I was 18. Happily married for 30 odd years. My wife is not just my wife, she's my best mate. Immensely supportive in everything I do, even when it's stupid things, she's immensely supportive. But when I've felt at my lowest ebb, she was probably the last person that I could turn to. I can't speak for everybody, but I kind of shut myself off, shut myself away, didn't want to talk to anyone. And it becomes that acute, I guess, that you can find yourself actually, or I can find myself at least, find myself feeling incredibly lonely, even if you're in a crowd. Before I sought help the first time around, before I went to see a doctor, the thing that it basically pushed me over the edge and made me realise that I probably needed to speak to somebody was I was going to an Institute of Demolition Engineers luncheon or event somewhere in London, and I've got a lot of mates in the IDE. I have a huge amount of respect for the Institute of Demolition Engineers. As I say, some of my closest industry friends are key members of the IDE. So I was looking forward to it. I got myself suited and booted, because if you spend any time hanging around with John Woodward at C&D Consultancy, you know, unless you're wearing a pretty smart suit and a decent pair of shoes, you're going to come in second place. So yeah, I was thoroughly suited and booted. Arrived probably 10 minutes early, which I am inclined to do. Got to the front door and then decided I couldn't go in, couldn't face it. There was going to be a room of hundreds of my associates and a good number of friends, and I couldn't walk through the door, which to this day baffles me, to be honest. But no, I just turned around, jumped on the train and came back home again. And that, I guess, is what mental health issues and depression and the like feel like. So looking back at my colleague who took his own life, as I say, he was happily married, but he chose not to share his plans with his wife until it was too late. The guy that I'm alluding to but not naming in the demolition industry, it would appear that he's done exactly the same thing. As I say, I'm not going to name him, and he did have a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a grumpy sod. But I always thought it was a grumpy sod in the same way that the comedian Jack D is a grumpy sod. That it was overlying. It was kind of an act. It was a front and a facade. In actual fact, he was doing it as much for effect as actual, being miserable. I will now never know whether that was the case. What I find troubling about this one is the last couple of times I spoke to him, we spent a lot of time talking about his daughter and a lot of the decisions that he had made recently had revolved around his daughter. So quite why he has decided to, assuming he has, as I say, it's unconfirmed as I'm speaking, quite why he's decided that his daughter would be better off without him around. I honestly don't understand that at all. Not really sure what I can add to that, really. As I say, there are some great charities out there. Mates in Mind are specifically dedicated to the construction industry and mental health issues in the construction industry. They do a great job, and that's why we give them a free advert in every issue of the Demolition magazine. There's a podcast called Mind Your Head, which I think is a great name for a podcast that deals with mental health issues in construction. It's well worth giving that a listen if you are struggling. But also pick up the phone, not just to me. Pick up the phone and speak to a friend or someone you trust, or even somebody that you don't know. Just talk it through. One of the things that came out of the documentary with Roman Kemp the other night was asking, "Are you okay?" twice. And I've actually had this done to me, and you'd be surprised just how effective it is. And I'll make no bones about it. The person that did it to me was Duncan Riddell, former IDE president. I'd been fairly upfront about the fact that I'd had a few issues of my own, and it was a good 6 months, possibly even longer, before I saw Duncan at I think it was probably an NDTG event, and we caught up afterwards. And as we always do, as everyone in this industry does, "Hi, how you doing?" And I said, "Fine." And he said, "No, how you doing?" And there was something in the tone of his voice and the fact that he'd hung on to the handshake back when those were things. He hung on to the handshake a little bit longer, and he was looking me directly in the eye, like, "You go on, it's your turn now." And it actually gave me the freedom to say, "Yeah, not great. And we had a long chat. And don't get me wrong, I've had two spells on medication for mental health and depression, but never once has the notion of suicide or anything like that even entered my head. I just go into a bit of a dark place and stay there for a little while until I get fed up with my own company, and then I emerge at the other end with some happy pills that may or may not have contributed. I honestly don't know to this day whether they actually work. They may well be some sort of placebo as far as I'm concerned. But I go in one end, and the two times that I've done it, I've come out the other end. And there is still a stash of those pills here somewhere, but I've not been on them for a good couple of years. And not been tempted either. So I guess I must have come out the other end, at least for now. I guess, like you always hear, recovering alcoholics and recovering drug addicts say, you're never you're never not a depressive person, but it comes and goes. So long as I look for the signs, and I know what the signs are, and I can see them coming a mile off now. I've been there twice, and I can spot it very, very early. And I do actually have the good sense now to reach out and to say, yeah, not doing so great right now. And that seems to do the job. I am rambling now, but please do reach out. Reach out if you're struggling yourself, and if you're working alongside somebody that you think might be. Ask them if they're okay, and don't ask them once. Ask them twice, and if you're not satisfied with the answer you get after twice, maybe go for a third time as well. We always dwell on this notion that men aren't particularly good at sharing their feelings and seeking help and that kind of thing. A weird analogy to draw, but I think to a degree it's like that old legend about the vampire. Vampire can't come in until you invite them, and I think we are like that. I think men are like that. I don't think I would ever go to another man, or I don't think I would ever go to another person and say, help, I'm struggling at the moment. But if somebody said, are you okay? That's given me permission. So give people permission. In this industry, even in the middle of COVID, we are working very, very closely with each other in large parts of demolition and bits of construction. We rely upon our colleagues for our safety and our well-being in a physical sense. We should also use that support network for the mental sense as well. Just going to check. Hang on a sec. No, it's okay. My phone was. My phone has been ringing. Yeah, my phone has been ringing, but thankfully not related to this. I say thankfully, but I would welcome it. But I'm going to call it a day now. That this show will go up on YouTube. My telephone number's on the Demolition News website anyway, so it's no great trade secret. But it will be on YouTube in permanent record. So even if you're feeling crap next week, next month, next year, give me a ring if there's anything I can do. As I say, not a mental health expert, not a mental health advisor, not a mental health practitioner. But I do have a fully functioning set of ears. One of the few bits of my body that still work much the same as they did when I was younger. So yeah, I've got a working set of ears, and I'm more than happy to listen to anything you've got to say. I'm going to close in a second. This is the hard bit, as I say, without naming the guy in question. It's hard to say much more, but if his family ever get to see this, and I'm not entirely sure I want them to, but if they do, I'm so desperately sorry. As I say, he had a reputation for being a grumpy sod, but I liked him. I liked him a lot. He made me laugh a lot, often by being miserable. And yeah, I think we're all that bit poorer for him not being here anymore. So to his family, I'm so desperately sorry. I'm going to call a halt there. Speak to your friends. I always finish these shows with stay safe, and I'm going to do that again, but I don't mean just physically. Obviously, these shows started with the original version of this show started with the outbreak of COVID, and the call was always stay safe, look after yourself, your family, and your friends. And I meant that from a physical standpoint. Wear your mask, keep your distance, and obviously within demolition and construction, safety is a paramount concern anyway. But today, particularly, look after yourselves and look after your colleagues from a mental standpoint as well. Ask the question, speak to each other, and if you do need help, speak to them, speak to me, speak to someone. When this goes out on YouTube, I will, oh, excuse me, I will post a link to the Mates in Mind charity and to the Mind Your Head podcast as well, in the hope that somebody might switch over to those rather than doing something that we would all, and their family and friends in particular, would regret. That will do us for now, I think. I will be back here again on Monday, 10 a.m. The show actually comes of age next week. It'll be our 21st show. So be here at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. Hopefully can bring you a little more good fun and cheer next week. But until then, have a great weekend. Look after yourselves, look after your family, your friends and your colleagues, mentally and physically. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Right, okay, I'm going to cut this bit off as well. Good morning, Ken. I think I've probably missed you. It looks like you're going back to work. And thank you for the compliments on the T-shirt. I agree. It is a very nice T-shirt, and I'm wearing it with pride today. Good morning, Nick. And good morning, Peter. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Particularly, I won't dwell on the circumstances surrounding my own colleague, but he'd got himself into a bit of a mindset which, if he'd have stuck around for another 3 months, was dealt with anyway. Just crazy, and I regret it to this day, and I'm sure I know his family do. So yeah, and that I think is going to be my closing remark of the day. That's what we need to be. I'll make no bones about it. In fact, I normally cut this bit off the end of the show, but sorry, I'm not going to this time. When the industry went into lockdown, when we all came back from ConExpo, it would have been very, very easy for me to go into my dark place. Weird thing to call it. It would have been very easy for me to succumb. I was isolated, couldn't do my normal job. Obviously, there were concerns about how I was going to earn an income without being able to go out on site. The printers that were printing the magazine had gone into lockdown. I then had my parting of the ways with the people that were selling advertising. It would have been very, very easy for me to slip back into my depressive state, and I didn't because I threw myself into a lot of things, but I did it at least as much, and I think primarily because Nick Drew and Peter Haddock were there egging. We were egging each other on. Peter always claims that I prompted him to doing podcasting. I don't believe that's the case, because the man can talk for England, and it was only a matter of time before he discovered that himself. Nick largely owns social media in the construction world. He would have been doing that with or without my support. But the support of those two guys, we've got our own WhatsApp group. Obviously, we formed the Construction Collective as a result of our working so closely together. That kept me going. I could have gone the other way. I could have just cut myself off and tucked myself away, and I didn't because I had two mates that were egging me on and bigging me up and generally giving me somewhere between a clip round the ear and a clap on the back. And I really appreciate that, guys. I don't get to see you anywhere near, well, not face to face. I don't get to see you anywhere near as often as I would like. Hopefully that will not be the case for much longer. But it's easier probably to say it to a camera, because I am a bloke and I'm not good at doing these sort of things. So to everyone that watches, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for the support. Thanks for sharing it and all these sort of things. But thanks in particular to my friends, and that's what they are, to my friends Peter Haddock and Nick Drew, for being there and for dragging me kicking and screaming through a pretty shitty year. I really appreciate it, guys. That'll do me for today. Before I get all slushy, I will be back here again on Monday. And as I say, don't forget, tune in at 6 o'clock on Monday night, because we have got the premiere of the video exclusive with the incoming NFTC president, William Crooks. Until then, stay safe, everyone, and I'll see you again very, very soon. All the best. Bye-bye.